And a couple of housekeeping notes to begin with. First of all, we'll be going for about 30 minutes-ish in terms of what I'll be sharing, and then there's question and answer time, which will be wonderful. So if you've got questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat at any point in time when you've got that question that's like top of mind. Please feel free to do that. I know we have some guests on the line today as well, and so I'll mention this at the end, but EBC is a wonderful organization. I met Teresa some years ago. In fact, it'd probably be a good idea if you're not muted currently to go ahead and mute yourself for the quality of the recording. I hear a little background noise. That's great. Thank you so much. But we will open up all the lines later so we can answer as many questions as you guys have, and I'll stick around and all that kind of thing. But EBC is just a wonderful organization in so many ways. I think it's what attracted me to it was its heart-centeredness and its leadership. I think model that very, very well. It's a global community, as you obviously can tell, and I think very much like-minded and like-hearted people. And for those of you that are curious to find out more about EBC, about joining, becoming a member, we'll provide links at the end as well. Real quick, ebcouncil.com/apply, envoy.ebcouncil.com as well, and you can find out more information. Of course, you can always connect with me or connect with Pam or others as well, just to find out what our experience has been, but it's been incredibly positive, and I'm happy to share all that with you as well. All right, we're going to get started, and I'm super excited. First of all, I want to start by just saying how grateful I feel to be here, to be alive and well in this moment. In fact, what I would love for each of you right now is to just type. You'll get used to how we collaborate today, and we are going to co-create this experience. So just put in the chat one thing that you are grateful for in this moment. One thing that you feel grateful for. I am grateful for all of your beautiful faces and your energy and the ability to be here and do what I absolutely love doing. And this is just a blessing to be alive and breathing in this moment. And you know, we'll come back to this at the very end, but it is very sacred, this moment, in so many ways, things that we can imagine and things that are even unimaginable and miraculous that are going on in our world right now. And I completely buy into and believe that everything is working to serve us all. And we can't always see that. It sometimes looks a little funny the way the universe does work on all of our behalfs. But and I suppose that's more faith than something I could prove. For me, it truly a knowing. So I'm going to go ahead and just mute everybody right now, and we will get started here. Beautiful. All right. So I'm very excited to be able to deliver this workshop to all of you, the art and the science of leading virtual workshops. And we love this title, Work From Anywhere, Earn From Anywhere. If you would love to be able to work from anywhere and earn from anywhere, like beautiful places such as Costa Rica, go ahead and put it in the chat as well. Where would you love to work from, earn from? You know, some part of the world maybe that you've never been to, Bali, I don't know where, many beautiful places we can go to. So right now, today's landscape is very much a landscape that is virtual in so many ways. I've just, out of the most recent EBC email, you can see that there are 4 workshops that are being delivered virtually just over the next couple of weeks. The Building Corporate Relationships During Chaos and Crisis. I want to attend that one. I think that's going to be absolutely incredible. Innovation in the Face of the Global Paradigm Shift, Part 2, with our dear friend DC Cordova and Maria Simone. That's a Part 2 because Part 1 was so great that they just decided to do another one, which is freaking great. Awesome. Slowing down to speed up is a term, it's a phrase we've used for a bunch of years now. And actually, you know, it's so important in this moment when we are being forced to slow down. And there's a whole other conversation around the importance of slowing down and the importance of developing resilience. In fact, our community is going to be doing a resilience-a-thon in just a couple of weeks. And I'd love to invite you to do that, to participate in that. We're going to have some of the world's foremost thought leaders, medical doctors, mindfulness experts, people in all areas, including finance, because having resilient money is a very important thing for all of us to know. That's one of the greater concerns that is happening right now. People that are worried about their money as much as they're worried about their health. So Deanna, feel free to put that in the chat as well, just information about the Resilience-a-thon. But today's landscape, a virtual training is for everybody. There's literally nobody that I can think of that can't benefit from a virtual training. So if you are a coach, a virtual training workshop or using virtual trainings can help you immensely. If you're a speaker like I am, if you're an author, if you're a dentist, a doctor, if you've been unemployed, if you sell a product, in any of those areas, there's an opportunity to create a virtual training that can help you to not only serve the world, because there's this opportunity right now to serve people at a level that's unprecedented. There's an opportunity for you to develop relationships with people globally in a way that's never existed before. There's an opportunity for people to engage with you, which we're going to talk about today as well, to engage with you and develop the relationships that ultimately lead to sales. I'm not talking about closing sales. Closing sales to me is an old paradigm term. It's defined by transaction. And we're not looking today to be transactional. That's not what this is about. It's about being transformational. There's an opportunity to develop something really important here together in collaboration that ultimately creates rapport, creates relationship, and maybe at some point there's an opportunity for people to do business together. Maybe at some point we'll get to do business together. So the opportunity couldn't be any greater. And to me, that gives me tremendous optimism. So real quick, a little bit about myself. Some of you may know me, some of you may not, and that's totally cool. My claim to fame, I suppose, is that I somehow survived the legal profession. I mean, after 18 years, I got out of the legal profession, and today I can proudly say I am a fully recovered attorney. The journey of leaving the law and moving into the space that I'm currently in is delineated, chronicled, the good, the bad, the ugly of it in this book that I'm holding up, Pivot, The Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life. And the book became a really big bestseller all over the globe, which was wonderful because it gave me opportunities to speak about the pivot process, this reinvention process. And it's much more of a process than it is sort of a thing you do. It's a foundational component, as my wife Randy likes to remind me. And so I ultimately became the CEO of one of the largest personal development business training companies in the world. I was CEO of Peak Potentials for a long time. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, I'm a teacher. And one of the things that we have done for years and years is train and teach and speak virtually. So even though this has become something that we're all very interested in now, we've been doing it for a long time. And so that's just a little bit of, I suppose, my credentials in being able to lead this call and share best practices with all of you. So what we're seeing on the screen right now is this phenomenal opportunity. You know, that's a recent talk that I gave called a Fuso talk. It was in Japan. It was in Tokyo in December, this past December, to the Mercedes-Benz folks, to the Daimler people. I do a lot of corporate speaking these days as well. And what I want to share with you today is the connection, the correlation between what it takes to be a really impactful and effective public speaker on a stage, a few hundred, few thousand people, and what it takes to do the same thing in a virtual training space, which is where we are right now. And these are the 7 things that we're going to cover today, and then we're going to leave space at the end for questions so that we can dig in even deeper. So these are the 7 things we're going to cover. I'm going to dig right in right now. I love Yogananda. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Yogananda's work, but we live in Encinitas, California, and this is one of the places where the Self-Realization Fellowship is for many, many years, since I think the 30s. And Yogananda said this long ago, that environment is stronger than will. I like to say that environment eats strategy for breakfast. I know there's that old saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Environment is so powerful, especially a virtual environment. So what we've got to do more than anything is to create something that can hold what we want to see happen. Meaning, we've got some ideas around a virtual training or workshop. We want people to learn something. We want to develop those relationships. We want to ultimately grow our business in using this magnificent teaching tool. The first thing that we've got to realize is that whatever we want to happen will only be as effective as the container that we put it in. You know, it's pretty obvious. And I use the example of New Year's resolutions. Or maybe I won't even go there because I know that that's a sore point for a lot of people. I'll use myself as an example. When I was a lawyer back in the day, I used to, and I had an office in Manhattan and an office in New Jersey. We lived in New Jersey at the time. And I would speak to my wife around 4 o'clock pretty much every afternoon. She was a teacher. She'd get home, and we have 4 kids, and she was taking care of the kids. And I would say around 4:30 every day that I'm going to be home for dinner. And I would say, if I'm being really generous, I probably got home for dinner on time 3 out of 10 times. So 70% of the time, when I said that I'd be home for dinner, even though I meant it, even though that was what I wanted to have happen, I didn't actually keep my word. And so if you can imagine a cup that has something inside of it, something that's important inside of it, whatever that is, and imagine that my desire to spend that time with my family, to have dinner around the table, to see my kids, to find out about their days, all those important things. When you have 4 kids, you like kids. We love kids, but I wasn't seeing them. And it was like a hole. It was like a leak in that container. So if you can imagine a cup that's holding all this love and all these things that I wanted to have experience, to be the experience of my family. And every time that I gave my word and then I didn't keep my word, it was like a leak in the energy. It was like a leak in that container. And so the container is a very powerful principle when it comes to any type of a training in terms of anything really that's important to us in our lives. We're only going to be able to achieve based on our integrity. And if there's a lack of integrity, or if there are holes or leaks in the container, then we've got a big challenge. I've sort of developed this philosophy around this container, or creating sacred space, from a gentleman by the name of Georgy Lazanov. And he's known as the father of Suggestopedia, or suggestology. It's kind of a made-up word, but he was a Bulgarian scientist. And he came to the United States, bringing with him some of his research around how people learn. And he worked with young people, he worked with older people on how to help them to learn languages more quickly. And for many people, learning a language, especially when you're old, is very, very difficult. And so he had a particular process and a way to curate and create a context where people could learn faster. He's, to me, what I would call the father of accelerated learning. Many of you have heard of, if you've heard of accelerated learning or super learning, go ahead and chat anything you like about that in below, because this man changed my life. He's a mentor. I never met him. I know he's probably a mentor to DC Cordova. We mentioned her earlier, and Marshall Thurber, and a lot of other people that really contributed a lot to the world of personal development, of human potential. So when we talk about setting a context, these are just some of the things, and we could spend a lot of time in this, which we won't right now, but I'll just tell you that one of the most powerful things that you can do to set context at the beginning is to set intentions. In fact, every workshop that we deliver, we typically ask people to set some form of intention. So at the beginning of this, I asked you all to just type in the chat one thing that you're grateful for. And part of the reason why, just to pull the curtain back for a moment, that I asked you to do that was because I wanted us to be able to create some intentions by our presence here today. I wanted us to be in a certain open space, to be open and to have our hearts be open. And one of those immediate ways that I know how to open my heart, and I help other people to do the same, even when we're sometimes more in our head, is simply to think about the things that we are grateful for. Some of the other things that are part of context that we would set would be the kind of rules of the road. the rules for engagement, if you will. In fact, these are sometimes referred to in neurolinguistic programming and NLP as agreement frames. So what are the kind of agreement frames that you want to have when you're delivering a virtual training? Well, you want people to be open, as opposed to, let's say, well, you know, I come in with my own thoughts on things, and I'm a little bit skeptical, and I kind of sit back in my chair with my arms crossed. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment about it. In fact, that's one of the agreement frames, is that we don't judge each other. But wouldn't it be amazing if we were all just willing to be open? Like for the next half hour, could we just be open? Learn what we can learn, apply what we can apply that makes sense, and anything that doesn't make sense, we just stop doing. You know, things like raising your hand, things like being on screen. So if you want the agreement that everybody be on camera, you've got to let us know that, because you've got to set us up for success, and you've got to set the training up for success. So all these kind of things, we'll take breaks. Sometimes we do lengthy trainings. As I said, we're going to do a resilience-a-thon with all these experts. We're going to be going for like 6 hours. There'll be 15-minute breaks in between some of those magical teachings. And we want people to be able to return on time. So being on time is one of those agreement frames. I'm a lawyer. And so, you know, when I put my lawyer hat on, I remember it's important in creating a sacred relationship or sacred space, again, thinking about that sacred container, that things that are said are held in confidence, that everybody agrees that what we discuss and what we share is confidential. And so you've got to ask people to buy into that. And you can ask them alternatively whether they don't buy into that, so that you know right away where you stand with people. So as I say, the first most important thing is that you set a context. The second is that you and this is really a hack for anybody that wants to be speaking more on a public, you know, in public and on stages, big and small. In fact, part of what our company does is that we train public speakers. We train people to deliver TEDx talks. And if there's one thing that I've said to speakers for probably about the last 10 years, that is more important than anything else, and it's sort of a hack, if you will, a shortcut to being able to be a more effective speaker and a more impactful speaker than probably 95% of the people that you'll see, especially in the corporate space, is that you actually engage your heart, that you lead with your heart, that you lead from your heart. In fact, that was the reason, primarily, in addition to wanting to create the space for this training, that I asked you to think about something that you're grateful for. Because the moment that I think about what I'm grateful for, the moment you think about what you're grateful for, your heart is open. It begins to open. It's like the aperture of a camera, you know, the way the aperture opens and closes, at least in the old 35 millimeter cameras. And so we want to open hearts, at least from our perspective, that an open heart is a more receptive person. It's a more receptive, it's a being that is more open and receptive to the information that you want to share. And so one of those simple shortcuts is to start by in leading by example. So sometimes right in the middle of a training, if I feel that my heart is closed, or that I'm more in my head and I'm more thinking, I just drop into my heart. Sometimes I take a nice deep breath. I close my eyes. In fact, I would love for you to all do that right now. As long as you're not driving or operating heavy machinery, you can go ahead and close your eyes for just a second and receive a breath right into your belly, you know, all the way down the way babies breathe, and just receive a beautiful breath. And put your hand on your heart, perhaps. Maybe one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And just allow a smile to form on your face. You don't even need a reason. You know, I'm a part of this group called the Transformational Leadership Council. And Marcy Shimoff is in that group. And she wrote this book, Happy for No Reason. You know, it sold a bazillion copies years and years ago. And you know, sometimes, can't we just be happy for no reason? Do we need to have a good reason? And I know I'm speaking to the right crowd anyway, because you guys are I'm sure, able to drop into that energy very easily. And so nice that we can drop in together right now. Because ultimately, the most important thing that we can do as trainers, as teachers, as speakers, as leaders, is to close the gap. And by that, I mean the perception of a gap, a distance between you and me. We're all the same. In fact, it's one of the most beautiful things I've experienced in regard to this coronavirus, this massive, prolific disruption and change in our world, and the suffering that we're seeing around the world, is the fact that I feel, and I think we all feel, more connected to the rest of the world today and now than we've ever felt before. How could we not? We're all experiencing this together. Doesn't matter what religion, what geography, where we live, what regime, what political party we affiliate with, or any of that. We are all connected through this one thing right now. And that's everything that a speaker will want to do when you're leading a training, especially a virtual training, is that you can find ways to experience that closing of the gap, that you can connect with other people and they can feel, most importantly, connected to you. One of the most effective ways to do that is in sharing your story. As I said, we train speakers, and one of the areas that people have difficulty with is how to share their powerful story, how to share their vulnerable story in a way that is both contained, meaning that they're not leaking their energy, that they're not telling a story that they're still bleeding from, as the saying goes, but that they can tell that story in sometimes short chunks, very, very quickly, but very impactfully. And in fact, this is an article about the importance of storytelling in growing your business. And KPMG and IBM and Southwest and Apple are some of the major companies that have actually brought people in to train their teams, their leaders, on how to share their story, how to create a narrative for themselves, and how to speak the organizational narrative. If you'd like to find out more about this article, in fact, we can send you a link to this article. Just put it in the chat. Deanna will take your name and we will go ahead. So in the chat, you can put your email if you like, and we'll just send you this article. The third, and again, after heart, the next thing that we've got to do, and this is a shortcut again to powerful speaking and the technique of being able to speak in front of any audience at any time, is engagement. You've got to have an engaged audience, because the moment that your audience is not engaged, they are elsewhere. They are distracted. They are picking up their phone, right? This device that people are touching on average, the research shows 150 to 200 times a day. And people are addicted to this thing. And so you're competing with that, with Facebook and Instagram and every other thing, like their emails and text messages. And so your primary job as a speaker is to engage that audience. In fact, our philosophy is that you've got to enroll 100% of the time. That's it. It's 100% enrollment, meaning enrollment of everyone 100% of the time. That, by the way, just so we're clear, that doesn't mean everybody's going to buy in. Everybody's going to agree with you. Everybody's going to buy from you, because a lot of times, in a virtual training, it's for business as well, and it's to develop those business relationships. But it's not about closing. It's about opening. It's about how do you open relationships. And one of the ways that you do it is allowing people to be seen and to be heard. And that means sometimes to be seen and be heard in what they disagree with. So often, and this is really, again, I'm giving you the shortcuts here, it's about asking questions. How many questions can you ask? I mean, you can't ask too many questions. I was a lawyer for 18 years, and the Socratic method is the question and answer method that is not always such a nice one. But I learned in that training long ago the art and the artistry of asking questions and how that engages people automatically. They can't be on their cell phones, and they can't be distracted when they're busy answering questions. And of course, those questions have to be relevant for them. So sometimes you'll ask them, how many of you agree with what I'm saying? How many of you believe that what I'm saying actually makes sense? In fact, I'll ask that question right now. Just go ahead and put in the chat if what I'm saying makes sense to you. Just, you can write yes or write on or whatever you like. And I'll ask the opposite question, which many speakers and trainers don't ask, which is, how many of you don't agree with me? How many of you don't think what I'm saying makes sense? And that's perfectly great, because again, enrollment, 100% enrollment means that everybody's enrolled. And so if you only ask one side of the question, if all you're looking to do is speak to the choir, preach to the choir, you're leaving everybody else out, and you're missing a massive opportunity when you do that. So some of the ways that the technology supports us, and I'm speaking now specifically about Zoom, is that we've got this opportunity to poll the audience. As you can see, I've just circled a couple of things down there that you can ask the audience polling questions. You can ask them to chat. You can ask them to include their reactions. In fact, right now on this platform, you can clap, if something you really like, you can hit the clap or you can hit thumbs up. These are ways for the facilitator, for the trainer to know where you're either reaching people or where you're not reaching them. And that's the key, is it to really fully be committed to, again, engaging your audience and closing the gap. Isn't just lip service to those things. You have to model it by doing it. And also you have to pay attention to what people are saying so that you in fact know whether or not you're losing somebody. So another way that we typically will train trainers to deliver, whether it's an in-person workshop or it's one of the virtual trainings, is to use processes and exercise. So I'll give you our template. It's right there. Our template for process is that we have people write. You write something down, and that could be writing it on your computer. It could be writing it, old school on a pad with a pen, whatever it is. And then we put you into groups, partner shared groups that on Zoom is called the breakout room. And then once there's a partner share, then we have the opportunity to then debrief as an entire group. And this is a template that we follow with every single exercise. That's why we call it a template. And quite honestly, it is very impactful. Simple process, 3 steps. Have them write, have them share, and then debrief as an entire group. You also have the opportunity to have them in masterminds. And I love masterminds. And you can have a mastermind with 3 or more people. I think it was Napoleon. Now I know it was Napoleon Hill that said that a mastermind is simply 2 or more people coming together. If you know the answer to that, coming together in, anybody know? I'll give you a second to type it in. Like extra points for this one. 2 or more people coming together in blank to create blank. If you know it, just go ahead and type it in. If DC was on the line or she's watching the replay, she's going to know these answers for sure. 2 or more people, or Sharon Lecter, 2 or more people coming together in harmony with the specific purpose of creating plans. So 2 or more people coming together in harmony for specific purpose, and that is to plan. So masterminds are very powerful tools that you can use virtually. And lastly, gamification. We were in a training just last week. I was part of a business training that was a couple of 100 people, and we actually did a virtual escape room, which was magnificent to see more than 100 people working together in groups of 8 and 10 on one of these escape rooms, and it was all done virtually. So it was very, very cool. And as you can see, if you've not used this platform before, down at the bottom on the nav bar, you will see there's an option to put people into breakout groups, breakout rooms, and those can be 2 people, 3 people, 5, 10, 20, what have you. In fact, the platform supports, I know our platform supports up to 500 people at the same time. I'm not sure if Zoom's platform goes beyond 500, but again, finding out more about Zoom, they are doing quite well right now. In fact, about a month ago, their stock was trading at under $2 a share, and now it's above $8. So they have done some really beautiful things by generously allowing the platform to be used and downloaded by thousands, maybe even at this point, hundreds of thousands of students around the world in schools. So they've done a wonderful job, and kudos to their CEO, and they deserve a tremendous amount of credit for stepping up in these times. The next thing that is really important when it comes to delivering a successful virtual training is that and this goes back to setting context. It goes back to what Georgy Lozanov talked about when he said that everything leaves a suggestion. That's why it's called suggestology or suggestopedia. That everything leaves a suggestion means everything makes a difference. And certainly when you're in a virtual training, we've got to have it be the kind of training, since we're not face-to-face, that engages us in all of our senses, in our sense of, sight for sure, our sense of hearing, etc. It's possible to even engage your olfactory senses for sure, your sense of touch, and all the rest. So we're talking about whole brain presentation creation. You want to engage the entire brain, the left and the right, as we commonly know it. So that's why stories and examples, visuals, analogies are so important to engage our emotions, to create images. I'm a visual learner, so I speak in analogies and I learn through that same kind of engagement. And then on the left side of the brain, the data. the research, the things, the case studies, the quantitative displays that we can make to engage that side of our brain. In fact, part of the reason why this slide is in here is because some of you are more left brain oriented, and this will appeal to you, including this, which is how it is that you structure a slide, because slides are the way that you are interacting on a nonverbal, obviously we are, as speakers, our verbal abilities and the way that we engage people verbally is so important, but there's also the nonverbal impact that we're having all the time. And that's through things to do with our own body language, which we're going to cover in just a moment, and in terms of the slides themselves. So if you take a look at our slides, they're branded. There's a brand guide with colors and logo and all that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be that sophisticated, of course, but the basic elements of these things are that you've got your logo there, that you've got a URL where people can see, that you've got one main reinforcing visual and a few words, not a whole ton of words. And certainly one thing that we don't necessarily recommend is that you read your slides. You can read some or parts and leave other words off, etc. But you want to continue to engage people. You want people to do their own thinking, because when they do, they learn faster. In fact, 80% higher learning comes from their own involvement. Also, consider your space. I think it's kind of a funny slide here, because often when I'm on someone else's virtual training, they haven't really given a lot of consideration to what you're seeing in the background. And, I hate to, or I guess I'm just going to admit the fact that, like many of us, I do judge. I don't want to judge, but I do judge. And often it's by what I see. And if I see clutter, if I see something that looks disorganized, if I see, like a painting that's sort of crooked, I know it's very critical of me. I'm more critical with myself, I promise you. But we all do that to some extent, and it just doesn't need to be the case that you're kind of distancing yourself from somebody, or somebody's disconnecting from you because the space that they feel or see feels not organized or is even chaotic, as you see in that picture. So Deanna actually pulled a couple of these screenshots from some recent trainings that we've given. Actually, one was a Toastmasters training that Deanna's one of the leaders in the Toastmasters group in the Boston area. And this gentleman was actually talking about COVID, was talking about the coronavirus, and he was telling a story about a very impactful experience he had when he was boating with his brother when he's very, very young, kind of a really scary experience. They got lost on the water. And so that was an actual picture of a sailboat on the water that he's using and telling his story. And that was his virtual background. And this beautiful lady above, named Meredith, she is one of our TEDx training students. So she's going to be delivering a TEDx talk in the spring, in the fall. And the background that she has there is a picture that she took at a Hyatt hotel. And she just loved that background. And this one isn't really doing it justice, frankly, because it's a little blurry. There's a beautiful background. And everybody was commenting on, where are you? And, couldn't even tell. I mean, it's virtual, and you don't try to fool people that it's virtual, but it's really, really neat that this background is doing, the job for her. So you want to choose that virtual background, and you can do that again from Zoom. So fifth, variants. I'll spend just a couple of seconds on variants to let you know that when you're delivering a virtual training, because we can only sort of see you from the chest up or from the neck up even, your variance is even more important. And to give you the two quick most important things in terms of variance, which is sometimes in music called dynamic range, it's your facial expression. So everybody go to a resting face right now. So everybody just put on a resting face. Don't smile. Don't do anything. Just rest. And sometimes, people have interesting expressions when they rest. My sometimes resting face is known as a resting bitch face or resting sad face. And so we all have that sort of resting face, and all it takes is smiling. Now go ahead and smile, and lots of, big energy now. Smile, show us your teeth, all that kind of thing. Because as soon as you smile, it's 180-degree difference. You've created massive variance simply by smiling, instead of being in your default mode or your resting mode, or the sort of the face that isn't showing expression. And the other thing is to importantize, which is a made-up word, where you just basically say things like, I want you to all to lean in right now. In fact, I want you to cup your ears because I'm going to share something so important with you about importantization, right? Because this is something, if you learn only one thing in this training, this is the one thing that you're going to remember. That's a demonstration of importantization. So when you importantize things, again, not everything, people will remember it. So variance is very important. Integration. Integration is very simple. This is what we're going to be doing in just a few minutes when we go to Q&A. It's the opportunity to engage with people, to find out what they think, to get their reflections, to get their feedback. We have a conclusion template that we always use. Our conclusion template is simply asking people to tell us what it is that they found most useful in the training. What's one or two or three things that they're going to use and take back to their teams, take back to their families, wherever. But it's in that debrief, asking them what the big ahas are and asking them to share with everybody else, that we get that integration opportunity. And the last thing is sequencing. And sequencing is just the way in which we space out information and we chunk it. So you take big chunks of information, you space them out, you sequence them, and the research is clear that when you do this, there's more than an 80% retention of the information versus when you simply speak about it. When you speak about it, and often this is the difference between a live training, face-to-face, where there isn't a lot of engagement, and typically keynotes can be like that, and a virtual training that you can space out over days, over weeks, and even over months. So the statistics, very clear about this. Lots more opportunities in virtual trainings today than in almost any other area. And so virtual trainings are very, they're very good, not only in the moment for the engagement and the opportunity to open those relationships, but also the opportunity to create a virtual product from it. What we like to refer to as an MVP, this minimum viable product. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's as simple as thinking about, and by the way, we're going to give you an opportunity to get these slides. So, if you want to dig in a little bit deeper, there'll be these class materials will be available to you. I'll give you the link to get the class materials in just a couple of seconds. But there's a lot of things that are what we call best practices when it comes to preparing the recording, having the right tech, having the right size of material, meaning that you don't sort of, in creating a virtual training, it's more practical to have your modules be 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes long versus 20 minutes or 30 minutes long. And so you have to think about, if you're going to be doing a virtual training and recording it and ultimately wanting to share it with other people, and ultimately maybe wanting to go beyond just sending out a replay, but in fact wanting to package it and sell it later on as one of those MVPs, then you've got to think about hiding the video panel. You've got to think about maybe getting people to sign a release, a DocuSign of something that says you're allowed to use their image if you're going to use their image. That you repeat questions that are asked so that you get a clear recording of what the question was before you provide the answer. That you dual record, use Audacity or some other technology that's available right now to record the actual training at the same time as it's being recorded virtually, because of course the internet goes out, you get static and other things. But if you record on your own computer, a dual recording is what it's called, and you don't have to worry about that when you're converting that for purposes of that saleable product later on. So right now, what I want to do, I know there's been probably a lot of questions that you guys have had or have, and I'm happy to turn it open up for all of us to be able to share, as well as find that we've gotten even greater clarity. We can get greater clarity on the material that I've provided. And I'm going to do that right now. And so I think Deanna or Randy, if you can take a look and see what questions you've got in there. And what you can also do, folks, is just simply raise your hand. So there's an opportunity for me to see if you've got your hand raised and you've got a question that you'd like to ask right now. So I see Pam Byrne. Awesome. Pam, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself? In fact, I'm going to go ahead, Pam, I'll unmute you because I think I have to do that. Wait, I've unmuted Ann. So forgive me. Let me go ahead and unmute.
Okay.
Great.
No, I'm just getting so much out of this. I'm not sure I have, well, How do you keep control of, if you send people to breakout rooms, is it best to designate one of the participants to be the head of that breakout room kind of thing?
That's such a great question. So every process is different. If you're putting people in breakout rooms, one of the most important things is that you give them directions before they go into the breakout room. So basically, you kind of got everybody here gathered. In fact, if I wanted to put you all into breakout rooms right now, I would create a process such as, all right, everybody, as I said at the very beginning, there's an opportunity for everyone today to create a virtual training. Like, so for example, give me the worst case scenario is that someone's been fired. Somebody's been laid off. I know that we just heard the statistic, 3.3 million people filed for unemployment last week. So how could a person who's been laid off do a virtual training? I mean, you know, we talk speakers, coaches, authors, people who have products to sell. You know, you can kind of envision that. But how about somebody who's just got fired? What do you do? Well, that person can invite a career counselor, somebody that's in the career counseling space, to come on a virtual training and use that person who's just been laid off as an example of what do you do in those situations and what are your next steps and what are the micro pivots right now. And that could be a very impactful virtual training that's really valuable to other people who might be in the same situation as that person who got laid off. It's super valuable, and there's an opportunity then for the person who's looking for some new employment to be loved on, and not just loved on by people supporting them and, you know, on an emotional level, but to give them context, to give them information about where it is that they might be able to apply for a job or what they could be doing next. It could be a very powerful process. So let's just say I said to all of you right now, every one of you's got a virtual training inside. I would say this, I'm going to put you in groups in just about 2 minutes, and those are going to be groups of 5. And what I want you all to do, once you've written down the idea that you have for the virtual training, is you're going to get in that group of 5, and the person with the shortest hair is going to go first, or the person, you know, who has a name that begins, you know, with the letter A, or alphabetically figure out who's the, you know, from you know, lowest to highest or something like that. Or you simply ask them to decide on their own who's ready to share. There's any number of ways that you can get them started, but you give them, Pam, the instructions before they go in. You tell them how long they're going to have. So I'll say, you guys are going to have 6 minutes to share, and I'm going to let you know when you have 2 minutes left and when you have 1 minute left. And what's wonderful about this particular platform is that the moderator can send messages to each of those groups. So let's just say, I don't know how many people are on this particular Zoom right now, but let's say there were 25. And we divide it up into groups of 5. So there's 5 groups of 5. When I send out a message, every single group sees it at the same time. So you give the instructions ahead of time, including if you're telling them who's going to go first. You let them know what it is that they're there to do. So everybody's going to get to share their one virtual training idea, and other people are going to be able to plus them, give them, you know, add on, not subtract, not be critical, not tell them why it won't work or what they don't like about it, but just the things, for example, that they think would really be helpful to other people. And all that's going to happen in 6 minutes. I'm going to let you know when you've got 2 minutes and 1 minute left, and you're done. You could put people in dyads, group of 2, and you can let them know you've got 3 minutes. And I'm going to tell you when you're, you know, the first person's going to go, and I'm going to let you know when you're at 1.5 minutes to switch. So all you've got to do is look at your screen, and I'll tell you when to switch, as though you were in an actual live training in a room. Just as simple as that. Did I answer your question, Pam? Awesome, cool. So let's take another question.
There's a couple in the chat, unless somebody's raising their hand.
Now let's take ones that are in the chat for now.
So somebody asked about maintaining engagement when you're asking people to write in the chat multiple times.
Okay, so you know what, maybe we can get a little clarity around that question. Who asked that question, if you don't mind?
Sarah Ross.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, unmute Sarah, unless you can unmute yourself before I get to you.
I think I can do it.
Awesome, very cool. So Sarah, what exactly do you mean by that?
So I've seen it on, people do it on Facebook Lives, and it's not always as easy if people are on phones or iPads on Zoom, because it's several clicks to get into chat, to have somewhere to type. And so when you were talking, it was like, I get about keeping them engaged and actually involving them by asking questions. But when that process involves 3 or 4 clicks for them to just write yes, they come back relatively quickly. But if you want them to write an answer to something like, what are we grateful for?
Yes.
Some will write 2 words and some will write sentences. And so it's really, how do you manage that when you have multiple times that you want to ask them to type something?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So one of the things that when you think about setting up one of these trainings, again, I think we have sort of 30 minutes for this particular our training. So it's a lot that we couldn't cover, but let's just talk about, what do you do before the training? Meaning you're sending out emails to people, you're engaging people on Facebook or Instagram, you're engaging other JV partners and saying, hey, will you mail from me, and all that kind of stuff, right? And your copy is very important, because the copy will give instructions, or can give instructions on, by the way, this is a virtual training we're doing on Zoom, and the best possible scenario for you to get the most out of it would be to come and be there on your laptop or be there on your desktop, as opposed to being on your phone. Now, if you're on your phone, you're welcome to come. Just know that part of what we're going to be doing is engaging, asking and answering questions and things. And so if possible to be in front of a laptop, much better. And now what you did was you set context, starting before you even started training. You started that context set in the instructions that you provided in those emails or in the Facebook Lives, where you're saying, hey, listen, I want you to join me on Saturday. And if possible, to not have you be like in your car or walking in the hills, looking on your phone. I mean, it's totally cool if that's what you want to do, but how about for this particular training, be in a place where you can sit in front of your laptop. And it's amazing when you sit, because what people will say to you is, hey, if I'd have known that was what was required, I would have put myself in front of my laptop. So you didn't set them up for success. And people, as we know, some people are very, very easygoing, and other people, man, they just, no matter what, they've got some bit of feedback for you. And so to just help them be successful, help you be successful, you got to think ahead of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. And the other thing that you can do, because we do a lot of Facebook Live stuff too, is you just ask people, hey, raise your hand if this makes sense to you. Everybody raise your hand. Does that make sense? Not everybody go yes, right? Tell your imaginary partner, say yes, right? So not everything has to be the typing in stuff. You can engage them in a multitude of ways.
Excellent. Thank you.
Way cool. Another question, Ran?
Yes, there's a few more. One was about, how do you maintain engagement when you have multi-day trainings?
Oh, beautiful. Well, okay.
Or how would you change what you do?
So I'm a big fan of the rituals that we have, especially the context setting rituals. And we just got out of a 6-day virtual training. So, 6 days to keep everybody engaged and energized. So part of that is how you begin the day. So starting the day with intention setting is powerful. Ending the day with what everybody learned or what everybody feels great about is just a wonderful bookend from a context standpoint. Setting up times in the day for breaks, including lunch break or 15-minute stretching breaks. Allowing people, if they need to go take care of their body, like it's a bio break that they need, or they want to grab something to drink, just go ahead and put your camera, just turn your camera video off like I just did now, and you can mute yourself and then come back when you're recharged and ready to engage. It's all kinds of things like that where people they know what the rules of the road are, and they also, so in between, so for example, setting up the breakout rooms when you've got a lot of people can sometimes behind the scenes take some time, because you got to move people around into the rooms, and maybe you want to, you were working with this group yesterday, but we want you working with a different group of people today. And so all that's happening with your support teams and the people that are just there to help. But now you've got dead air time. Well, you don't have dead air time, because right now I could say to you all, so let's all talk about, one thing that we learned already today, like one thing that was the most impactful thing that you've learned. Or you could say, who's got a great joke? Literally, when you're on with 50, 60, 150 people have the funniest things to share. And it just becomes this really wonderfully organic situation where you're able to have people be interested, and yet you maintain the control. That you're still the person who's leading and creating that context, and there's a it's just a wonderful form of leadership to be able to be flexible in those moments. So hopefully I'm answering your question. I would say it's just using creativity. You can have music, like in between your sessions when you go to a 15-minute break. It's great to have interlude music. Music is one of those things that assists in creating that high learning environment. We used to, gosh, we've done I don't know, maybe 1,000 live trainings over the years. Music was always a big part of our breaks. It was always a big part of bringing people back into the room, and how the mind just works better when people are sharing. Often when people are doing a writing exercise, we have a certain kind of music playing. When they're doing partner shares, we have other music playing. So, there's so many ways to do that. I'm going to take one more, maybe two more questions, and then some final thoughts. And I'm going to also allow you guys to give you a URL to get the class materials and talk about, where we're going from here. So, another question?
I know there were some questions about certain platforms, which I don't know that we can get into now, but Sheila, is Sheila out there? You have a question that you can't raise your hands?
Yeah, no, you answered it. You just said go to chat and look for my name, and there was a raise your hand. So thank you very much. But I'm not seeing the other things, like with the breaking out into groups or partners. Is that only on the host site?
So it may not be. Have you just joined Zoom today for this meeting? But do you have Zoom downloaded on your computer?
I do.
Okay.
I
When you're the host,
Okay.
there are different menu options that you'll get down at the menu bar on the bottom. So, for example, in looking at my options right now, I have the ability to record and pause. I have the ability to put you all in breakout rooms. In fact, I just want you to have this experience really fast, which is that I'm going to put you in breakout rooms really quickly, and then I'm going to bring you back just so you can experience it and see it, because it's so flippin' cool. All right, so we've got 26 participants. I'm dividing you guys up into 5 rooms, and you're going to be in there. I just want you, when you get in the room, I want you to say hello to each other, okay? Say hello to each other, and then you're going to a thing from Star Trek will beam you back, okay? So when the little button that says join room comes up, you've got to hit join room. And then once you say hello, I want you to say, when the button comes up that you can come back, I want you to hit that button to come back. Okay, here we go. Off you go. How cool is that? I mean, seriously, hands up if that's not freaking cool, right? I mean, 10 years ago, this didn't exist. We couldn't have done this. It was unthinkable. And if I'm being truly transparent, when we first started doing this, I was a skeptic, because I was so used to delivering, live trainings for, bunches and bunches of people. And I said, it could never be the same. We could never get the energy going. We could never get the transformational opportunities. And I was so ridiculously wrong. This is a really profound opportunity for all of you right now to use this training. And I'm going to invite you right now to think about, so here's my bit of life work for you. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen again. And I'm going to just take you through this last piece of it, and then just do some housekeeping with announcements at the end as well. So right now, I want you to all think about, and this is your life work. I'm not a big fan of homework. I wasn't a big school guy, even though I was a teacher for a couple of years. But I want you to think about, what's one thing right now that you can teach in a virtual training setting, just like what we just did right now. And I mean, there's nobody that doesn't have something that they can teach that would help you to, again, engage people, open relationships, not closed sales, but open relationships that ultimately might lead to some people doing business with you, and really will be a tremendous value in the world right now when people really, really need it. So I want you to think about that. Think about and write down, what is that one training that if you could do it this Saturday, because we've got a training tomorrow. In fact, we're doing an expanded version of this. So if you didn't get enough of this training and you want to get even more details on this and another opportunity to ask questions, then we're going to go ahead and put in the chat right now the link for tomorrow's class. So Deanna, if you would be kind enough, put that link in the chat, because we're going to have more time tomorrow to do it. But one thing that you'd love to teach in a virtual setting, and if you'd like to have an ideation session with me, we've got a lot of people on this call, more people, I think 27. I don't know that I personally can facilitate that discussion with everybody, but someone from our team will, and I'm certainly willing to do the first 10 or so. I haven't looked at my calendar. My wife's probably shaking her head right now, but let's just say for the first 10 people that would love to have an ideation session with me to talk about exactly what your idea is and how you could turn it into a virtual training, what that would look like. That ideation session with me, all you need to do is email team@adammarkel.com, team@adammarkel.com, and it's a gift to you, and I'm happy to do that. And again, if you can't get with me for some reason, because it will just do it first, first in kind of thing, then someone from our team, and they're more brilliant than, they're brilliant. I'm not brilliant. They are. So you'd probably be better off getting them anyway. And then the class materials for today as well. Class materials for today, gettedready.com/EBC, gettedready.com/EBC, and you can get our class materials, which I think, again, will be really, really important for all of you, because it will put more detail into what we've been able to cover so far. So again, ideation sessions with me and with the team, as well as the class materials. And if you can join us tomorrow, all that information will be in the chat as well, and be happy to have you do it. Right now, this is what we would do. We would ask you, because virtual training means, again, doesn't mean speech, means engagement. So this is our template for our conclusion. Typically, any workshop that we deliver is, what are my 3 takeaways? What are my biggest learnings? How will I apply these in my life and my business? And what am I going to start doing right now? So I've given you that life work now to write down, what did you learn today? What are the things? In fact, if you want to type that in the chat right now, if you already know, I learned this, or this was one of my big key takeaways, please go ahead and type that in the chat. And this is really mostly for you, although I know the folks at EBC, Teresa and Pam and everybody would love to just know, was this valuable? So first of all, from just the show of hands, I'll stop my share so we can all see each other. How many of you found today to be valuable, that this content was valuable for you? It was tactical and tangible and all that. Thank you so much. So if there's something in particular that you learned that you want to even learn more about, or if you'd like to have a part 2, I don't know that we can do that, but if we could dig into this a little bit at more granular level and you'd like to do that, please let Teresa know, let Pam know, and you can type in the chat as well. So that one takeaway and how you're going to use it in your business right away. And for that, I would say every single one of you in the next 30 days, if you could deliver a virtual training, man, that would be the absolute best thing you could do right now to not only serve the world, but also serve your own community and build your business. So I gave a TED Talk, it was September 8th, 2018. It was launched in February of 2019. And the through line of that talk, because when we talk about TEDx, we talk about through lines. The through line of that talk was something that I want to share with you right now, because this is how I want to leave you. We are living in a time of unprecedented change. There's prolific disruption. And as we said earlier, there's tremendous opportunity, and that is not making light of the fact that there's also tremendous suffering that is happening right now. And the most important thing I think that all of us can do each day is to create a day that we would want to share with the world. Like from A Course in Miracles, there's a beautiful chapter 30 on new beginnings, and how it is that you actually create the day that becomes a gift to the world. And so I have one ritual that I start my day with, have for more than 10 years, that I want to share with you all right now. And it's 3 parts. And the first part is waking up. So I hope everybody will raise their hand on this one. How many of you, first of all, how many of you woke up today? Raise your hand if you did. How many of you not so sure you're still in the process? Yeah? Cool. Thanks for the honesty. And how many of you want to wake up tomorrow morning? Yes? We know that there is no guarantee that that's going to happen. And when we do wake up tomorrow, because that is what's going to happen for us, we do wake up tomorrow, it is a blessing. And when you take that first breath, that first waking breath, that first conscious breath of the morning, I want you to, if you can, for even just a moment, realize that there are people in that moment who are taking their very last breath. And that makes that moment holy. It makes it sacred. It's something you can be grateful for. If nothing else, you can be grateful in that moment for that breath. And that's step 2, just to take 10 seconds to feel gratitude. And the last thing, if you're willing to do this, is to say 4 simple words out loud. And I can see Rodney Flowers right in the middle of my screen, and Rodney's got his shirt on. I'm pretty sure he's wearing that shirt, man. So Rodney, just lean back so we can see what's written on your shirt. These 4 words: I love my life. I love my life. I want to ask you all if you love your life, so I'm going to unmute everybody and we can get it all on the recording. So how do you feel about your life, everybody?
I love my life.
Fantastic.
One more time, everybody. I
love
my life.
Love my life.
Mwah. Love you guys. You're absolutely amazing. We have a podcast as well that you could check out if you want to go to adammarkel.com and check out some of the conversations we have with some amazing people. And I look forward to seeing you all either tomorrow or sometime soon. Thank you to EBC. Again, the folks that are guests on today's at this particular gathering, if you'd like to find out more from me or other members about the value of EBC, and you want to even apply to become a member, you can go to ebcouncil.com/apply or envoy.ebcouncil.com. And it is a rockin', amazing, beautiful group of people that you'll be joining. So ciao for now, everybody. Thank you so much.
Well
done, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. That was great.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Bye, Gary.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Take care.
So long.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.